What's going on, guys? All right, you know what I'm gonna. I know you guys are sick of me talking about it, and I'm getting sick of talking about it. But I want to kind of just give everyone an explanation about the math behind not reverse dieting and why it's a stupid thing. Okay? So, firstly, there's two different things that people talk about when it comes to reverse dieting. They say reverse dieting is once you finish your diet and working your calories back up to your estimated maintenance calories, okay? That's what I would call reverse dieting because you're reversing out of a diet. Or there's people who are like, oh no, it's to build up your maintenance calories, all right? Now the second thing, if you're building up your maintenance calories from what you think they would be compared to higher, that's not reverse dieting. You're building up maintenance calories, okay? So the definition of reverse dieting to build up maintenance calories doesn't make sense, right? People think they're going to reverse back out and then go above their maintenance calories. Okay, if that's the thing too, right, whatever it is. Either way, I'm going to cover these concepts for you guys, okay? So, firstly, there is 3,500 calories in 450 grams of fat, all right? Just for the sake of it, let's just say, 450 grams of fat. It's very close to 500 grams, okay? So if you're put in a 500 calorie deficit, ideally you're going to lose 450 grams a week. Now, this isn't going to be exact, okay? Because sometimes, I could give you 500 calories less and your body can adapt really, like a little bit. So you may only be losing 300 grams a week or 400 grams a week instead of 450, okay? But let's just say in a perfect world that I've given person A 500 calories less and they're losing consistently 450 grams a week, okay? And for 10 weeks, they've lost 450 grams. So they've lost 4.5 kilos in 10 weeks. The second person I've given a 500 calorie deficit. They're losing 450 grams a week, but as it goes on, they're losing less and less. And they're losing now 200 grams a week at the end, okay? So one person's lost 4.5 kilos. Let's say one person's lost 3.2 kilos, all right? So either way, at the end of the 10 weeks, okay, person A is still losing 450 grams a week. So if he wants to continue his deficit, he can keep losing. Person B is only losing 200 grams of fat a week. So if they want to continue their deficit, they can either increase the calorie deficit or they can stop there, right? But with person A, if they're losing 450 grams a week, what do we know? We know they're in a 500 calorie deficit a day because 3,500 calories make up 450 grams of fat. And if they're eating 500 calories less a day, 500 times 7, because there's 7 days in a week, that's 3,500 calories, right? So they're in a 500 calorie deficit a day. Person B is probably in about a 300 calorie deficit a day because they've slowed down, right? And their deficit has become smaller. So one's got a bigger deficit gap, one's got a smaller deficit gap. I hope you guys are with me so far, right? So in saying that, the bigger deficit gap, the smaller deficit gap, when it comes to finishing your diet and you think you need to reverse out, if you are losing 450 grams a week, which is 500 calories less a day, what happens if you now eat 500 calories extra a day? You maintain your new weight. You just bridge that gap, You're eating down here. You're supposed to be eating up here to maintain that weight. You just close that energy gap. If you're losing 200 grams a week, you're roughly in a 300 calorie deficit a day, probably about 330 calorie deficit a day. So then you just bridge that gap and it fixes. So this is why reverse dieting doesn't matter because based on how much weight you're losing, it's just what you eat back up to that point, all right? So roughly for every 100, this is not 100% perfect, but for every 100 calories less you eat a day under maintenance, you will lose about 90 grams on the scale in a week, okay? So if you eat 100 calories less a day, 700 calories less in a week, you're gonna lose about 90 grams on the scale, okay? Because, simple math there, if we just add all that up in regards to trying to find out that, that energy deficit gap, 100 calories is 90 grams, 200 calories is 180 grams, 300 calories is 270 grams, 400 calories is 360 grams, 500 calories is 450 grams, all right? So it's just basic math, okay? Now again, it's not exact. If you eat 100 calories less a day, you're probably not gonna lose 90 grams in a week because we do have metabolic adaptation, right? But in saying that, that's why we have those bigger jumps. That's why we start deficits 250 to 300 calorie deficits versus being 100 calorie deficit because you're not gonna see much of a difference, okay? But in saying that, as a general rule, so that way whatever amount of weight you're losing in a week, so if you're losing 200 grams a week, you're in about a 300 calorie deficit, give or take. So you just close that energy gap straight away. You don't gain fat because you're just stopping yourself from gaining what you were losing, right? You're just eating to here to maintain. You're not eating back up here. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense for you guys. Now people say, oh, but I'm going to build up my maintenance calories. I can eat more than this, you know? Can we build this up? You really can't for the most part, right? Can you go above predicted maintenance calories? Most likely, yes, but it's not a lot higher than you think. And you're not reversing anything. Basically, what you're doing is you're eating more. So first you want to close that energy gap. Then when you think this is your maintenance, then increase by 100 calories for 2 weeks and watch your weight and watch your measurements. That's how you do it, all right? The point is to get out of the deficit as soon as possible because every single day and week you are prolonging a deficit because you're trying to reverse out of a deficit. You are not repairing your ghrelin. Well, not repairing, but your ghrelin's not coming back to normal, right? And it's a hormone that makes you hungry. Your leptin isn't being restored properly, right? Your sleep isn't going to be the best. Your cortisol levels are not going to be, they're still going to be higher than usual. They're going to be okay. Your sex hormones will probably be lower, you know? Every day, your food focus will be higher. So deficits, like the longer you prolong a deficit to get back to your maintenance is a bad thing. And you've gone from a 10-week diet to a 15 or 16 or 20-week diet because you're trying to reverse and adding 50 calories in every week when there is 0 point in doing that, all right? So I hope that makes sense. I hope that covered everything you guys need to know. And yeah, if you guys have any further questions about reverse dieting, you can ask, but I think I've covered that quite well for you guys.